The ships appeared without warning. One moment the sky was empty. The next moment, 50 massive shapes hung above Earth like dark clouds. They were so big they blocked out parts of the sun. People in cities around the world stopped what they were doing and stared upward. Jiwan was in a meeting when her phone started buzzing with emergency calls. She was Earth's chief diplomat, responsible for dealing with international crises, but no one had ever prepared for this kind of crisis. The alien ships did not attack. They just waited, silent and threatening. Within hours, every government on Earth was trying to contact the ships. Radio signals, laser communications, even old-fashioned Morse code. Nothing got a response. The ships simply floated there, watching. Dr. Minji ran to her laboratory as soon as she saw the news. The energy readings on her instruments were going crazy. The patterns she had been tracking for months were now overwhelming her sensors. She finally understood what she had been detecting. Weapons. Alien weapons charging up. Her hands shook as she called Jiwan's emergency number. The energy signatures, Minji said when Jiwan answered. I've been tracking them for months. These ships have been watching us, studying us. And their weapons. Jiwan, their weapons can crack planets. Jiwan felt cold. Are you sure? The math doesn't lie. These aren't exploration ships. They're warships, and they're more advanced than anything we've ever imagined. Doyon was at home when the ships appeared. His first thought was wonder. Humanity was meeting another intelligent species. This could be the greatest moment in human history. A chance for peaceful contact with aliens. His second thought was fear. He had studied military tactics his whole life before becoming a peace activist. The position of the alien ships was not random. They were positioned to attack major population centers around the globe. This was not a peaceful first contact mission. The phone calls started coming quickly. Old friends from his military days. Government officials who remembered his strategic abilities. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted him to help plan Earth's defense. I don't do that anymore, Doyon told them. I work for peace now. There might not be any peace left to work for, said General Park, his former commander. We need you, Doyon. Everyone can see these ships are positioned for war. If we don't defend ourselves, there won't be anyone left to make peace. On the third day, the aliens finally made contact. A signal came from the largest ship, the one hanging over the Pacific Ocean. It was in perfect English, broadcast to every radio and television station on Earth. Humans of Earth. We are the Vorthak Empire. We have come to offer you a place in our civilization. Jiwan was chosen to represent Earth in the first contact meeting. It was the most important diplomatic mission in human history. She felt the weight of 8 billion lives on her shoulders. The meeting took place on a small space station that the aliens built in Earth's orbit. Jiwan traveled there in a small shuttle, accompanied by Sung-hoon, Earth's military advisor. Sung-hoon was a quiet man with sharp eyes who noticed everything. The alien who met them was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes.
He introduced himself as Commander Tae-hyun.
He spoke English well, but his voice was cold and emotionless. Welcome aboard, Tae-hyun said. I hope this meeting will be productive for both our species. The meeting room was stark and metallic. Jiwan and Sung-hoon sat on one side of a long table. Tae-hyun sat on the other side with 2 Vorthok guards standing behind him. We have studied your species for some time, Tae-hyun began. You have certain useful qualities. You work hard. You adapt quickly. You can survive in many different environments. Jiwan tried to stay calm. We're honored by your interest. We hope this can be the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples. Tae-hyun's expression did not change. Peace is certainly possible. The Vorthok Empire has brought peace to 147 worlds. We can bring the same peace to Earth. And what kind of peace? Sung-hoon asked quietly. The peace of order. The peace of purpose. Earth will become part of the Empire. Your people will contribute to our civilization. In return, you will receive protection and guidance. Jiwan felt her heart sink. And if we refuse? Refusal is not practical. Your technology is primitive. Your governments are divided. Your military forces are scattered and weak. Resistance would only lead to unnecessary destruction. Tae-hyun activated a holographic display above the table. It showed images of other worlds that had joined the Empire. Cities in ruins then rebuilt in gray metal. Humans in work uniforms mining and building under alien supervision. Families separated and relocated to different planets. As you can see, Tae-hyun continued, integration is always successful. It may be difficult at first, but your species will adapt. They always do. Sung-hoon leaned forward. How long do we have to consider this offer? 72 hours. That should be sufficient time for your leaders to understand the situation and make the logical choice. The meeting ended there. Ji-won and Seung-hoon returned to Earth in silence. Both of them knew they had not been negotiating. They had been receiving an ultimatum. Back on Earth, emergency meetings were happening in every capital city. World leaders who had been enemies for decades suddenly found themselves working together. The threat from above had united humanity faster than any peace treaty ever could. Dr. Minji worked frantically in her laboratory. The quantum field manipulation research that had been theoretical was suddenly the most important project on Earth. If the aliens' weapons worked on quantum principles, maybe she could find a way to disrupt them. She studied the energy patterns coming from the alien ships. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it followed rules she could understand. Every energy field had a frequency. Every frequency could be countered by another frequency. The question was whether she could find the right counter frequency before the 72 hours ran out. Doyen found himself in the strangest position of his life. The man who had dedicated years to promoting peace was now being asked to plan for war. But as he studied the situation, he realized something important. This was not really about war. It was about survival. They've done this many times before, he told the assembled world leaders during an emergency video conference. They have a pattern. Arrive in overwhelming force. Demand surrender. Take everything. They're confident because it has always worked. So what do? Asked the President of the United States. We don't act like their previous victims, Doyen said. They expect us to be afraid and divided. They expect us to fight each other instead of them. They expect us to make desperate attacks that will fail. What do they not expect? Asked the Prime Minister of India. Doyen smiled for the first time in days. They don't expect us to be smarter than they are. As the 72 hours began counting down, something remarkable happened on Earth. Nations that had been enemies began sharing military technology. Scientists from different countries started working together. Diplomatic barriers that had existed for decades suddenly disappeared. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They thought humanity's tendency to fight was a weakness. They did not realize it was practice. Hyun watched the human activities from his flagship. Their military forces were moving, but not in any pattern he recognized. Their communications had increased dramatically, but most of it was encrypted. Their leaders were meeting constantly, but no surrender message had been sent. Admiral, said his tactical officer, the humans appear to be preparing some kind of resistance. Hyun was not concerned. Let them prepare. It will make no difference. In 72 hours, Earth surrenders or Earth burns. Either way, the Empire wins. He had no idea that the countdown was not leading to humanity's surrender. It was leading to the Vorthak Empire's greatest mistake. The countdown reached 36 hours. Around the world, something unprecedented was happening. Every nation on Earth was working together. Military bases that had been secret for decades suddenly opened their doors to foreign scientists. Weapons programs that had been hidden were shared freely. Technology that had been guarded as national secrets became common knowledge. Seung-hoon found himself coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Not an attack, but a preparation. Every submarine, every satellite, every hidden facility was being connected into a single network. For the first time ever, Earth had one unified military command. The aliens are watching our communications, Seung-hoon explained to the other commanders during a secure video conference. They think they understand what we're doing, but they're only seeing what we want them to see. In her laboratory, Dr. Minji made a breakthrough. She had been studying the energy patterns from the alien ships for days without sleep. Her eyes were red and her hands shook from too much coffee. But she had found something incredible. Ji-won, you need to see this, Minji said into her phone. The aliens' technology has a weakness, a fatal flaw. Ji-won arrived at the laboratory within an hour. She found Minji standing in front of a wall covered with equations and energy diagrams. Look at this pattern, Minji said, pointing to a series of waveforms on her computer screen. Every alien ship produces the same quantum signature. They're all connected to a central power source. It's incredibly efficient, but it's also vulnerable. Vulnerable how? If I can generate the exact opposite frequency, a counterwave, I can disrupt their entire power grid. All their ships would lose power at the same time. Jiwon stared at the screen. Can you build such a device? I think so. But it would need to be deployed very close to their command ship, maybe even inside it. Across the city, Doyen was having the strangest conversation of his life. He was talking to world leaders, military commanders, and scientists all at the same time. The peace activist had become the coordinator of humanity's resistance. The aliens are expecting us to panic, Doyen explained. They're expecting desperate attacks and chaotic defense. Instead, we're going to give them something they've never seen before. Unified human strategy. What's the plan? Asked General Chen from Beijing. We make them believe they're winning right up until they lose everything. Doyen outlined his strategy. It was complex and dangerous. It required perfect timing and incredible cooperation. Most importantly, it required someone to get close to the alien command ship. I'll do it, Doyen said quietly. Absolutely not, said Sung-hoon. You're too valuable. We need you coordinating the operation. No, Doyen replied. You need someone who understands strategy. Someone who can think on their feet. Someone who can sell a lie so well that the aliens believe it completely. The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorthak flagship, Commander Taehyun was having his own doubts. He had studied human culture more deeply than any other Vorthak officer. What he found was troubling. Humans did fight each other constantly. But they also had something the Vorthak Empire had never encountered. When truly threatened, humans could unify with incredible speed. They could put aside centuries of conflict to face a common enemy. Taehyun had read about human history, about how they had fought 2 massive world wars, then united to explore space, about how competing nations had worked together to solve global problems, about how human individuals would sacrifice everything to protect strangers. He tried to express his concerns to Admiral Hyun, but the Admiral was not interested in listening. Commander Taehyun, you worry too much, Hyun said. These humans are divided and weak. In 18 hours, we will demonstrate our power by destroying their moon. Then they will surrender. Admiral, I believe we may be underestimating them. Impossible. Look at their response to our ultimatum. Random military movements. Scattered communications. No coordinated strategy. They are exactly what we expected them to be. Taehyun was not convinced. The human military movements looked random, but he had studied their tactical history. Some of their greatest victories had come from strategies that appeared chaotic until the final moment. With 18 hours left on the countdown, Hyun gave the order. The Vorthak fleet powered up their planet-cracking weapons and aimed them at Earth's moon. The demonstration would be perfect. Destroy the moon, show the humans their helplessness, then accept their surrender. On Earth, every telescope and sensor was pointed at the alien ships. Minji watched her instruments as massive energy readings built up around the fleet. The aliens were preparing to fire their biggest weapons. They're targeting the moon, she reported to the command center. Energy buildup suggests they're going to try to destroy it completely. Sung-hoon nodded grimly. Expected. They want to show us their power without damaging the planet they plan to conquer. Can we stop it? Asked President Martinez from the emergency bunker in Colorado. No, Sung-hoon replied. But we can make sure it's the last thing they ever destroy. Doyen was already preparing for his mission. Dr. Minji had finished building her quantum disruptor. It was small enough to be disguised as a diplomatic gift, but powerful enough to cripple the entire alien fleet. Are you sure this will work? Doyen asked, holding the device. The math is solid, Minji replied, but you'll need to activate it inside their command ship. The signal needs to reach their central power core. How will I get inside? Jiwon smiled. That's my job. I'm going to request a formal surrender ceremony. The plan was audacious. Jiwon would contact the aliens and request to surrender on behalf of all humanity. According to the intelligence they had gathered, the Vorthak were honor-bound to accept formal surrenders in person. It was a tradition that went back centuries in their culture. Doyen would accompany her as Earth's military representative. He would carry the quantum disruptor disguised as a ceremonial gift. When the moment was right, he would activate it and cripple their entire fleet. But first they had to watch their moon die. The Vorthak weapons fired with blinding light. Beams of pure energy struck the moon from multiple directions. The ancient celestial body that had watched over Earth for billions of years began to crack and crumble. People around the world watched in horror as chunks of the moon broke away and drifted into space. The tides would never be the same. The night sky would never look the same. The aliens had taken something that could never be replaced. But instead of despair, something else spread through humanity: cold, focused rage. In the command centers around the world, military leaders watched their screens with expressions of deadly calm. The aliens had just made their biggest mistake. They had shown humans exactly what they were capable of, and humans were very good at learning from examples. "Send the surrender request," Doyen said quietly. Jiwan transmitted the message to the alien fleet. "This is Ambassador Jiwan of Earth. We have seen your power. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. We request a formal ceremony aboard your command ship, as is traditional among civilized species." The response came within minutes. Admiral Hyun was pleased to accept Earth's surrender. The ceremony would take place in 6 hours aboard the flagship. As the broken pieces of the moon drifted through space, the final phase of humanity's plan began. The aliens thought they had broken human resistance. In reality, they had just triggered the most dangerous response in the universe: a unified human species with nothing left to lose. Do-Yun looked up at the shattered moon one last time. "You should have left us alone," he whispered to the alien ships. "You really should have left us alone." The shuttle carrying Do-Yun and Jiwan approached the massive Vorthak flagship. From the outside, the ship looked like a dark metal mountain floating in space. Gun ports and sensor arrays covered its hull like scars. This was a ship built for conquest. Inside the shuttle, Do-Yun checked the disguised quantum disruptor one more time. It looked like an ornate metal box, the kind of ceremonial gift that diplomats often exchanged. No one would suspect it contained a weapon that could cripple an entire fleet. "Are you nervous?" Jiwan asked. "Terrified," Do-Yun admitted. "But not of dying. I'm afraid of failing. If this doesn't work, humanity becomes slaves forever." "It will work," Jiwan said with more confidence than she felt. "It has to work." The shuttle docked with the flagship. Vorthak guards escorted them through corridors lined with alien writing and strange symbols. The ship was huge inside, with ceilings so high they disappeared into darkness. Their footsteps echoed as they walked. Commander Tae-hyun met them at the entrance to the ceremony hall. He looked tired, as if he had not slept in days. His black eyes studied Do-Yun and Jiwan carefully. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Dominion," Tae-hyun said. "Admiral Hyun is prepared to accept your surrender." The ceremony hall was enormous. Hundreds of Vorthak officers stood in perfect rows, watching as the humans entered. At the far end of the hall, Admiral Hyun sat on a throne-like chair raised above the floor. He was larger than the other Vorthak, with scars across his gray face and metal decorations on his uniform. Do-Yun and Jiwan walked slowly across the hall. Every eye was on them. Every alien in the room believed they were watching the final defeat of the human species. They were wrong. Back on Earth, Seung-hoon watched the ceremony through a hidden camera in Jiwan's diplomatic case. Around the world, military commanders waited for his signal. Satellite networks that had been dormant for years suddenly came online. Underground bunkers opened their blast doors. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as civilian installations powered up. Phase 1 complete, Seung-hoon reported to the Global Command Network. All units stand by. Dr. Minji monitored the quantum frequencies from her laboratory. Every alien ship was connected to the central power core aboard the flagship. When Do-Yun activated the disruptor, the cascade effect would spread through the entire fleet in seconds. "Quantum links confirmed," she reported. "The disruptor should affect all 50 ships simultaneously." In the ceremony hall, Admiral Hyun rose from his throne. His voice echoed through the vast space as he began the traditional surrender speech. "Humans of Earth," Hyun announced, "you have made the wise choice. The Vorthak Empire welcomes you as subjects. You will serve with honor. You will work with purpose. You will find peace under our rule." Jiwan stepped forward. "Admiral Hyun, we bring a gift from the people of Earth. A token of our respect for your power." She gestured to Do-Yun, who opened the ceremonial box. The quantum disruptor gleamed in the alien lights, looking perfectly harmless. Beautiful craftsmanship, Taehyun observed. What is it made from? Rare, metals from our deepest mines, Doyen replied smoothly. The most precious materials our world can offer. What he did not say was that the device contained quantum processors more advanced than anything the Vorthak had ever seen. Dr. Minji had built something that was centuries ahead of human technology by combining alien energy readings with breakthrough physics. Admiral Hyun gestured for them to approach his throne. As they walked closer, Doyen's hand moved to the activation switch hidden inside the box. Before we complete this ceremony, Doyen said loudly, I have something to tell you. The hall fell silent. Every Vorthak officer turned to look at him. You have conquered 147 worlds, Doyen continued. You have enslaved billions of beings. You have built an empire on suffering and fear. Admiral Hyun's eyes narrowed. What? Is the point of this speech human? The point, Doyen said, is that your empire ends today. He activated the quantum disruptor. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every light in the ship flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in a red glow. Alarms began wailing throughout the massive vessel. On the bridge of the flagship, Vorthak technicians stared at their instruments in disbelief. Power readings were dropping across the entire fleet. Ship after ship was going dark. Admiral, a communications officer called out. We're losing contact with the fleet. All ships report power failures. But Admiral Hyun could not respond. He was too busy watching something impossible happen outside the ceremony hall's windows. Earth's satellites were revealing themselves. What had looked like harmless communication satellites and space junk was transforming. Solar panels unfolded into weapon arrays. Sensor dishes reconfigured into targeting systems. Civilian space stations split open to reveal military platforms. Impossible, Admiral Hyun whispered. Not impossible, Doyen replied. Just well planned. Commander Taehyun had been watching the human ships appear with growing amazement. Earth had not just hidden a few weapons. They had hidden an entire military infrastructure in space, right under the Vorthak fleet sensors. How long? Taehyun asked quietly. How long what? Doyen replied. How long have you been preparing for us? Doyen smiled. Commander, we've been preparing for someone like you since we first looked up at the stars. We've been preparing for war since we learned to make tools. Every conflict in human history was practice for this moment. More ships appeared around Earth, sleek vessels that had been hidden in the shadows of asteroids and behind the planet itself. They moved with precision and purpose, surrounding the powerless Vorthak fleet. On Earth, Sung-hoon coordinated the operation from the Global Command Center. All units initiate Phase 2. Boarding operations commence now. The hidden human ships moved toward the alien vessels. Boarding pods launched from their hulls carrying teams of soldiers and engineers. The plan was not to destroy the Vorthak ships but to capture them. Every ship represented technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. In the ceremony hall, Vorthak guards tried to raise their weapons, but the power failure had disabled everything electronic. The weapons were useless chunks of metal. You planned this, Admiral Hyun said, his voice filled with disbelief. All of it. The division, the chaos, the surrender. It was all an act. The greatest performance in human history, Jiwon confirmed. We spent months making sure you saw exactly what you expected to see, a divided primitive species. But we studied you, Hyun protested. Your wars, your conflicts, your inability to cooperate. You studied our practice sessions, Doyen explained. Humans don't fight because we're weak. We fight because we're very, very good at it. And when something threatens all of humanity, we stop practicing on each other and start working together. Commander Taehyun had been silent through this exchange, but now he spoke. The tactical data, he said suddenly. You need our fleet locations, our defensive positions. Admiral Hyun turned to stare at his subordinate. Taehyun, what are you saying? I'm saying we underestimated them completely, Taehyun replied. I'm saying they're going to win this war, and I'm saying that if we help, then maybe some of our people will survive what's coming. Traitor, Hyun snarled. Realist, Taehyun corrected. He turned to Doyun. What do you want to know? Do-yun's expression grew serious. Everything, every ship, every base, every enslaved world. We're not just defending Earth, Commander. We're liberating every world your empire has conquered. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear reports from across the fleet. Human boarding teams were taking control of ship after ship. The Vorthak crews, powerless and confused, were surrendering without a fight. Admiral Hyun sat heavily on his throne, looking like a broken man. 300 years, he whispered. 300 years of conquest ended in 3 hours. Actually, Do-yun said, checking his watch. It's been 12 minutes. Outside the windows, the last of the Vorthak ships went dark as human teams took control. The most powerful fleet in the galaxy had been defeated without firing a single shot. The liberation of the galaxy was about to begin. The black ships moved through space like hunting wolves. Admiral Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars bend around them. His fleet was the pride of the Vorthak Empire. 50 warships, each one bigger than a city, each one carrying enough weapons to burn a planet. Hyun touched the control panel with his long fingers. The screen showed him a small blue world spinning around a yellow star. Earth, the next target for the Empire. Admiral, said his second officer, the scanning is complete. The humans have no shields, no fast ships. Their weapons are very basic, Hyun smiled. His sharp teeth caught the light from the screen. How many worlds have we taken now? 147, Admiral. This will be 148. The Vorthak Empire had been growing for 300 years. They moved from star to star, taking what they wanted. Resources, land, workers. The pattern was always the same. They arrived. They demanded surrender. They took everything. Hyun had done this many times before. He knew how it would go with the humans. First fear, then desperate fighting, then surrender. Finally, acceptance of their new lives as servants of the Empire. Tell me about their military, Hyun said. The officer touched his own screen. They have many small armies. Different countries. They fight each other more than they work together. Their biggest weapons are nuclear bombs, but very old designs, crude, weak. Population? 8 billion humans. They live on all the continents. Most of their cities are near water. Hyun nodded. 8 billion workers would be useful. The Empire always needed more workers for the mining operations and factory worlds. On Earth, Dr. Minji worked late in her laboratory in Seoul. She did not know that alien scanners had been watching her city for 3 months. She did not know that everything she did was being recorded and studied. Minji was working on something new. She called it quantum field manipulation. The math was incredibly hard. The experiments kept failing. But she felt close to something important. Something that could change everything. She looked at her computer screen. Strange readings appeared every few days. Energy patterns that should not exist. They came from empty space, but they were definitely real. Minji thought they might be natural phenomena. Some new type of radiation from deep space. She was wrong. The readings came from Vorthak ships testing their weapons in Earth's outer solar system. Across the city, Do-yun finished his speech to a small crowd. He was tired but happy. The people had listened to his ideas about peace and cooperation, about how humans could work together instead of fighting. Do-yun used to be a military strategist. He was very good at planning battles and predicting enemy moves. But he left the army because he believed war was wrong. Now he traveled around the world speaking about peace. We are one species, he had told the crowd. We share one planet. Our differences make us stronger, not weaker. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do. The people applauded. Some of them looked convinced. Do-yun hoped his words would spread. Maybe one day humans would stop fighting each other. He had no idea that in a few days all humans would need to work together just to survive. Back in space, Hyun studied the reports about human history. The Vorthak were very careful. They always learned about their targets before attacking. Knowledge was a weapon. These humans fight constantly, Hyun said to his officers. Look at this data. In the last century alone, they had 2 massive wars, dozens of smaller ones. They cannot agree on anything. That will make conquest easier, Admiral, said the tactical officer. Divided enemies fall quickly, Hyun agreed. The pattern was clear in the reports. Humans made alliances, then broke them. They promised peace, then started new wars. They had nuclear weapons, but were too afraid to use them properly. They had the technology to reach space but spent more money on fighting each other. What about their leadership? Hyun asked. Chaotic, Admiral. They have hundreds of different governments. Some are democracies where leaders change every few years. Others are ruled by kings or dictators. They argue about everything. Trade, borders, resources, religion. Hyun felt confident. The Vorthak Empire was united under one government. One military, one goal. These divided humans would crumble in days. The fleet prepared for the final jump to Earth's solar system. The ships checked their weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains. Gravity bombs that could crack continents. Shield generators that could deflect any primitive human weapon. In her lab, Minji noticed something strange. The energy readings were getting stronger. They seemed to be coming closer to Earth. She ran the numbers again and again but could not understand what she was seeing. She decided to contact her friend Ji-won, who worked for the government. Maybe the diplomatic corps would know if other countries were testing new technology in space. Doyeon returned to his small apartment and turned on the news. The reports were the usual mix of conflicts and political arguments. A trade dispute between two nations. Protests in 3 different countries. Military exercises in the Pacific Ocean. He sighed. Even after years of speaking about peace, humans still seemed determined to fight, but he would not give up. Change took time. Maybe his children would see a more peaceful world. Neither Minji nor Doyeon knew that they would both play crucial roles in the next few days. Neither knew that the readings Minji detected would lead to humanity's salvation. Neither knew that Doyeon's strategies and Minji's science would save their species. Hyun gave the order. The Vorthak fleet jumped toward Earth. 50 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system, invisible to human detection. They began their approach, moving slowly and carefully. The Admiral was pleased. In 72 hours, Earth would surrender. In 1 week, the mining operations would begin. In 1 month, the human workers would be building ships for the Empire. He was completely wrong. The Vorthak Empire was about to meet an enemy unlike any they had faced before. They thought they were hunting sheep. They were actually walking into a trap set by wolves who had been preparing for this moment for longer than the Empire had existed. The gathering storm was about to break. And when it did, the galaxy would never be the same. The data download took 6 hours. Commander Taehyun sat at a computer terminal in the flagship's command center, transferring every piece of military information the Vorthak Empire possessed. Star charts, fleet positions, defensive installations, supply lines, everything. Doyeon watched the data stream across the screen. Each file represented another enslaved world. Another population waiting for freedom. The scale of the Vorthak Empire was staggering, but so was the scale of humanity's response. 12 systems, Taehyun explained as he worked. Over 200 worlds. 15 billion enslaved beings from 47 different species. Not enslaved, Doyeon corrected. About to be liberated. Across the galaxy, something unprecedented was happening. Human ships were appearing in every Vorthak system simultaneously. The quantum fold technology that Dr. Minji had developed was not just a weapon disruptor. It was a transportation system that allowed instant travel across any distance. Earth had not built one fleet. They had built dozens of fleets, hidden in quantum fold space until the moment of activation. Now they were emerging everywhere at once, carrying liberation to every corner of the former empire. On Earth, Seung-hoon coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history from the Global Command Center. Screens showed battles and surrenders happening on hundreds of worlds. Most Vorthak forces surrendered immediately when they realized their entire fleet had been captured. Status. Report, Seung-hoon called out. Vorthak System 7 has surrendered, reported Colonel Kim. 3. Worlds liberated. Population of 8 million safe. System 12 is offering resistance, reported Major Park, but their defense platforms are powered by the same technology we disrupted. They'll fall within hours. System 4 reports. Celebration in the streets, reported Captain Lee. The local population has already overthrown their Vorthak. Administrators, Dr. Minji, worked frantically to coordinate the technical aspects of the liberation. The quantum fold technology was complex and dangerous. One mistake could strand a human fleet in empty space or worse, destroy an entire star system. Fold jump successful to System 9, she reported to Seung-hoon. Admiral Torres reports 3 worlds secured and population centers protected. Any casualties? Seung-hoon asked. Minimal. The Vorthak forces are surrendering faster than we can process them. In the ceremony hall of the flagship, Admiral Hyon sat in stunned silence. Through the windows, he could see human ships arriving from all directions. Not just the fleet that had been hidden around Earth, but vessels from across the galaxy. Ships that should not exist. Technology that should not be possible. How? He asked weakly. How did you build all this without us knowing? Jiwan sat across from him, no longer the humble diplomat who had requested surrender. Admiral, you scanned our planet for months. You recorded our communications. You studied our technology, but you only saw what was on the surface. We detected no industrial capacity for this scale of construction, Hyon protested. Because we didn't build it on Earth, Doyen explained. We built it in space, in asteroids, in the outer planets, in places you never thought to look because you assumed we were too primitive to reach them. The truth was even more remarkable than that. Humanity had been preparing for extraterrestrial contact for over a century. Not just hoping for it, but actively planning for both peaceful and hostile scenarios. When radio astronomy detected the first alien signals, secret programs had been launched immediately. Dr. Minji's quantum research was part of a global network that had been developing advanced technology for decades. The apparently primitive satellites around Earth were actually quantum communication relays, allowing instant coordination between hidden installations throughout the solar system. The moon, Admiral Hyon said suddenly. You let us destroy your moon. We evacuated it first, Jiwan replied. The research stations and mining operations were moved months ago. We knew you would want to demonstrate your power, and we knew you would choose a target that wouldn't damage the planet you planned to conquer. It was all planned. Every detail, Doyen confirmed. From the moment your ships appeared until this moment right now. We've been 3 steps ahead of you the entire time. Commander Taehyun finished the data transfer and turned to face them. It's done. You have everything. Fleet positions, supply lines, communication codes, defense systems, everything you need to dismantle the Empire completely. Thank you, Doyen said seriously. You've saved millions of lives. I've doomed my own species, Taehyun replied. No, Jiwan corrected. You've given them a chance to survive. The Empire was built on conquest and slavery. That was never going to last forever. Now your people have a chance to build something better. Reports continued to stream in from across the galaxy, system after system falling to human forces, world after world celebrating their liberation. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly free. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the planet from the Emergency Command Center. Citizens of Earth, I can report that the immediate threat to our world has ended. The alien fleet has surrendered, but more than that, we have begun the liberation of every world enslaved by their empire. The speech was broadcast not just to Earth, but to every world in the former Vorthak Empire, translated into dozens of languages and transmitted by quantum relay. To the enslaved peoples of the galaxy, Martinez continued, help is coming. Human forces are moving to liberate every world, every population center, every labor camp. The age of the Vorthak Empire is over. The age of galactic freedom has begun. 6 months later, Dr. Minji stood in her new laboratory on the space station orbiting Earth. It was 100 times larger than her old lab. Equipped with technology from a dozen different species, the quantum field research that had begun as theoretical physics was now the foundation of a new galactic civilization. The former Vorthak territories had become the Human Liberation Alliance. Not an empire, but a voluntary confederation of free worlds. Each species governed itself, but all were protected by human military forces and connected by quantum communication networks. Jiwan served as the first Director General of the Alliance. Her job was to help newly liberated worlds establish their own governments and integrate with the galactic community. It was challenging work, but incredibly rewarding. Shung-hoon led the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, a military organization designed to prevent any other empire from rising to threaten free worlds. The force included volunteers from dozens of species, all trained in human military tactics and equipped with the most advanced technology in the galaxy, Commander. Taehyun had been granted asylum on Earth. He worked with human strategists to identify and dismantle remaining authoritarian regimes throughout the galaxy. His knowledge of Vorthak military doctrine was invaluable in the ongoing liberation efforts. Doyen had returned to his preferred role as a peace activist, but now his speeches were broadcast to hundreds of worlds. His message remained the same. Cooperation was humanity's greatest strength. But he added a new warning. Their capacity for righteous violence was absolute. The Vorthak homeworld had been given a choice. They could join the Alliance as a free and equal member, or they could be quarantined on their own planet under permanent monitoring. Most chose to join. They had seen what happened to empires that threatened human-protected worlds. Admiral Hyon lived in comfortable exile, writing his memoirs. The book, titled How an Empire Falls in One Day, became required reading at military academies throughout the Alliance. His final chapter was just one sentence. Never underestimate a species that practices war by fighting itself. On Earth, children learned about the brief alien invasion in their history classes. They learned about the courage of their leaders, the brilliance of their scientists, and the effectiveness of global cooperation. But most importantly, they learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their technology. It was their willingness to unite when faced with a threat to their freedom. The galaxy had been changed forever. The age of conquest was over. The age of liberation had begun. And at the center of it all was a small blue world whose inhabitants had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Sometimes the best way to ensure peace is to be better at war than anyone else. Thanks for you.